Salutations, my fellow dudes and dudettes, and welcome back to The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. Last time, we completed the Bottle's Grotto, and we managed to acquire the second instrument, the Magic Conch, or the Conch Horn, however, whatever you prefer. But today, we're going to be doing a bit of cleanup before we actually get to the next area, because now that we have the Power Bracelet, we can finally, start exploring this island just a little more. I mean, like a lot more, but, you know, we're only really covering the areas we have already explored. We just have the Power Bracelet, so we're gonna just start going, we're just gonna start going to all the places we normally couldn't, and start using that Power Bracelet to get a bunch of neat stuff. Like this 50 rupees here. So now, with the Power Bracelet, you can lift those skulls up, which means we're gonna have to pay the Mysterious Forest a visit during this part. Now, if you're a bigger fan of the dungeons, of like watching like me go through the dungeons as opposed to everything in between, hate to break it to you, but we ain't going to enter the next dungeon for the next 3 parts. Because we've got because with this part we're essentially, like I said, we're gonna be exploring everything we've already seen, just with the Power Bracelets. So we can cover some more stuff like heart pieces and secret seashells. And with the next part, we're actually going to be going to the next area, and with the part after that, we're going to be cleaning up everything over there. Like, here we go, right there, a secret seashell. Couldn't get to that before. However, there is one interesting little secret in this forest that does stand above the rest. Now, when you truly think about it, it's actually not that impressive when we actually get it. But it is something worth noting. So, once we backtrack through this cave, well, for one, we could actually get this heart piece real quick. So yeah, that's pretty much how it's going to go down. We got 3 parts. Unfortunately, you're going to have to wait a little bit before we actually get to the next dungeon. I mean, if you were a stickler for longer parts, well, here you go. Because this part's actually kind of a beefer. Especially considering, like at the end of this part, because there's actually a major game mechanic that was introduced in this remake, but we'll get to that in due time. But before any of that, let's pick up this rock, find this staircase, oddly enough, and we got this little pot cauldron thing. Sprinkle some magic powder on it, and then we'll get this guy.
Hey kid, you woke me up from a fine nap. Thanks a lot, but now I'll get my revenge. Are you ready? I'll let you carry more magic powder.
What? How is that getting revenge on me?
You deserve it. Now look at all that junk you have to carry.
Just put a picture of like Knuckles from the Sonic shorts where he has like his back is in so much pain because all the crap he's carrying. But yeah, with that we're actually able to hold more magic powder, essentially doubled the amount we could have in the bag from 20 to 40. Unfortunately, we do have to say goodbye to Bow Wow now, so we're going to return him to the woman who apparently hired us as an assassin, if we're going by what the Moblin said earlier. Oh, and apparently she gives us a kiss as a reward. I mean, it's lucky, I guess, but I think I would have liked something substantial. Whatever. But yeah. And I guess since all we're doing, is really, like, collecting a bunch of stuff. Oh yeah, now that we have enough money, we can actually pick up the shovel. We're gonna come back for that heart piece later. Actually 2 parts from now, we actually do pick up that heart piece. And we're also gonna pick up bombs, because we actually haven't acquired those yet, and the shop is now selling them. And now that we have the bombs, it's time we backtrack to the first dungeon because for some odd reason in Tail Cave there was a wall that you could blow up, but since we didn't have bombs at the time, we're not gonna be wasn't able to do anything with that. But first, the trendy game. Every time you complete a dungeon, a figure you'll be able to get you'll be able to get figurines. And you can place them throughout the town on these little pedestals. I believe I mentioned this in a previous part, but now I'm actually showing off like one of those figurines in question, which is the Goomba. And there's also a little rock thing over there too. Now my advice to you when it comes to those moving platforms is obviously make sure your placement is at least on par with where like in relation to where the object is, like as if the crane was directly above it. You just have to time when you lower the crane. My suggestion to you is for this one, which I'm going to show here, wait until the platform starts moving, like almost gets to one side, and you should be able to do that just fine. Do it with the other platform too. It's like start lowering the crane when the platform nearly gets to the other side. And you should be able to get your Goomba figure and a chamber stone. Why does it feel so strange? I don't know. It was because it's a rock. Whatever. But yeah, like I said, now that we have bombs, we're actually, after we place the Goomba, I tend to forget I sort of fumble around a lot. And we can place the Goomba here. And no, I did not guess through multiple houses. I actually got lucky with that one. Guessing the right house. Alright, so we're actually going to go back to the first dungeon. And we're going to take these bombs over there. And the wall in question should be right over here. Thankfully, you don't have to see me, like, running all the way back here. I'm just cutting all that out. And we got a seashell out of there. Okay, so something I should go a little in-depth, like give an in-depth explanation for. I brought mention of the Power I keep saying Bracelet. I brought mention of the Power Bracelet being much more useful in here than it was in the original. The original was on the Game Boy. The Game Boy had limited buttons. It had the start button, the select button, the A button, and the B button. The select button brought up your map, the start button brought up all your items and all your collectibles, and A and B were all your actions. I guess because they didn't think about making like stones and stuff that you could lift up contact sensitive or whatever. Like because they couldn't make it like contact sensitive since there was only so few buttons to work with, they decided to make the Power Bracelet in the original game a separate item. And that really hindered its effectiveness because, like, the amount of times you end up pausing the game, the amount of times you have to press start and equip your Power Bracelet was obnoxious, because for what it's worth, you needed a lot in this game, because we're constantly lifting up stuff. And with the Game Boy version, if you didn't have the Power Bracelet equipped, or like before you got the Power Bracelet equipped, the game had the tendency to give you this annoying as heck message every time you simply just rubbed against a rock. That actually sounds really weird now that I word it like that. But every time you every time your character like was physically touching something that you would be able to normally just lift up, you would constantly get this annoying prompt saying, "Oh, this looks really heavy. If only you had something to actually lift it." And this would happen repeatedly throughout the playthrough. Like I said, the Power Bracelet was an absolute necessity in this game. And as you're seeing with this whole roundabout going around collecting stuff. And I'm glad this remake happened because, oh boy, I don't think I would be able to tolerate that one, something as much as a remake. I just wish it wasn't as costly as it was. Whatever, I can rant about that at a later point. This is crazy, Tracy. So remember what I said with the fairy bottles that the fairies in the side of the bottles cannot actually revive you. They can just heal you as long as you preemptively use it before you actually bite it. The reason for that is Crazy Tracy. In the original, there were no bottles. The only way you could comfortably heal yourself with your dying breath is going to Crazy Tracy. Crazy Tracy will essentially give you a secret potion, which immediately kicks in when you die. And it was the most efficient way, it was the most effective way to prevent yourself from dying. Only problem is, after the first encounter, it's always 68 rupees to pay for it. That blue thing we saw out there will have a use later. But now it's time to get into that little game mechanic that was introduced in this 2019 remake. This is Dampe. Dampe was not in the original game, and this building was also not in the original game. Well, it was, but it had a different purpose. In the original Game Boy version, this was called the Camera Shop, where you would be able to meet with this guy who would essentially take a picture of you, and if you had the Game Boy printer at the time, you could actually print out that picture. And this incentivized you, the player, to actually go around the island and see what kind of neat scenarios can arise. You can actually get one particular picture with Bow Wow, which is kind of neat. And the camera guy would always immediately show up to take that picture, and he would actually provide a title for it. So that was kind of cool. But not only was nobody really using that printer, there's really no need for it, honestly. At least I don't think so. So instead, the remake introduced us to chamber dungeons. Basically, here's how this works. You're essentially all the dungeons you've completed. You're essentially able to create your own dungeon out of the respective rooms in those previous dungeons. This is essentially a prelude to a potential Zelda maker, like a Legend of Zelda dungeon maker, like something comparable to the Super Mario Maker games we have currently. As far as I can tell, we're not sure if that would actually happen. The only thing we know is Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out, so that's a thing. Looking forward to that. I might actually LP that as soon as it comes out. But anyways, with how this works is basically you got the basic fundamentals. You gotta have an entrance for your dungeon, a boss door for your dungeon, and at least one room with a chest. And you can arrange it in any way you want. If the rooms are highlighted in blue, that means they're properly connected, and you can traverse through them just fine. You will not be able to start actually exploring the dungeon that you made until all the rooms are blue. So this sounds really cool. Being able to take parts of a previous dungeon you've explored to actually, create your own dungeon, essentially, is really neat on paper. Unfortunately, as cool as this sounds, there's a number of snags. The biggest one being Super Mario Maker's biggest selling point was the fact that not only could you create your own levels, you could other people around the world specifically can actually play those levels. And in the case of Super Mario Maker 2, they can tell you whether it's a well-designed level or a bad level. I think the options were like yeah or boo, whatever. So I think it was like some sort of heart symbol for the I approve. But yeah, with this game, that's not the case. If you want to share your dungeons with other people, you have to make sure to do it locally because there's no online means of doing so. I think this is a missed opportunity, but unfortunately, that sort of kind of goes into some of the other problems with the Dungeon Maker. Alright, so, alright, at least from what I've acknowledged. So, you need, like I said, you need an entrance, you need at least an entrance, a boss door, and a room with a chest in it. Why why at least one room with a chest in it? You need to make sure you have a chest that has the nightmare key. And as we'll get introduced to the mechanics of the other mechanics of this Dungeon Maker later, we'll be allowed to have chests with small keys. Unfortunately, you cannot manipulate how your dungeon is laid out with keys and the like, because here's how this works. If you have, say, 3 locked doors, like 3 locked doors and the nightmare key, the first 3 chests you obtain will always have a small key in it. And the last chest will always, and the very last chest you open will have a nightmare key. So we'll say you put 5 chests in, we'll say you put 5 or 6 chests. The first 3 will have keys, and the other 1 or 2 will have a bunch of rupees. And normally they're in small intervals. Now what's cool is that you can actually keep the rupees you get out of these chamber dungeons, so that's really cool. So if you're struggling to buy certain items from the shop, like that shovel or the heart piece that's in there, or if you're just not getting any good luck with the crane game, you can come here and you can grind rupees. It's totally fine. Dampe doesn't mind. But you cannot exactly manipulate what keys are in what chest. The keys will always be in the first set of chests you open, which pertain to the amount of locked doors there are. 3 locked doors, the first 3 chests will be keys. I'm kind of not a fan of this because there's no way for you you or the person that's playing your dungeon to get lost, and I think that's really lame. And I don't know. I feel like this is a prelude to a Zelda Dungeon Maker, because in this case we can only really manipulate the rooms themselves. It's not exactly we can make our own dungeons and puzzles. We're just simply placing rooms from previous dungeons and just rearranging them in a different way. So, yeah, this seems cool, but it kind of loses its charm after a while. Unfortunately, we're going to have to be doing this a number of times because since more heart pieces were added, that also applies to all these chamber dungeons. Oh boy, but I think I've ranted on long enough. I guess I'll explain how we're gonna handle these chamber dungeons in one of the later parts. But with that said, we're done. Next time on The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, we're gonna head to that prairie that the mysterious voice told us to go to. So we're actually gonna progress now a little bit. So until then, I got a juice.